Hi everyone, welcome to Write by Mia. I'm Mia, and in this Writer's Life episode, I will be discussing how to write a successful query letter. So I've brought you guys on my journey with, thinking of a novel idea, writing the first draft, and revising it. And finally, I wanted to just share some tips on my journey to find an agent. And one of those first steps to doing that is writing a query letter. So I wanted to kind of share what I've learned as well as just some general tips and advice on that front. So first off, what is even a query letter? A query letter is basically a marketing kind of page for your work of literary art that you would send to a literary agent in the hopes of gaining their interest so that they will then review your manuscript and hopefully take you on as a client. Now, query letters are very short. They're only around 300 words. So it is definitely a very difficult skill to make sure that not only are you hooking the agent, but you're also providing enough information about the novel and yourself to make you an interesting, client and potentially having an interesting manuscript so that the agent would, give you a second look. So that's what a query letter is, just kind of a marketing page, short 300 words that you would send to an agent in the hopes that they would read your manuscript. And now let's dive into what are the actual components of a query letter and how would you go about writing one. So first and foremost, congrats on finishing a revised draft of whatever you're working on, novel, set of short stories, etc. It's a huge deal to get to the point where you feel like you want to share your work of art. So first, for me especially, that was like a big thing, like, wow, I feel that I'm at the point where I can share my novel with people in the hopes that I can bring it to a broader audience. So first, took a deep breath, congratulated myself, and then dove into what it would actually mean to share with agents. So the first thing I did, and is kind of, best practice I've heard, is to do your research on the agents you want to send the query letter to. So for instance, if, like me, you wrote a novel that is literary fiction, then I wouldn't be looking for an agent that specializes in self-help or sci-fi or fantasy. So a big thing is to make sure that the agents you're reaching out to really correspond with the genre and the type of work of literary art that you're writing, because otherwise they're probably not going to give it a look if you're not even in the same wheelhouse as the other artists that they've represented. So that's the first thing. And what I did for myself was I was actually recommended a few agents by a publisher, stroke of luck, who knew some agents and was like, hey, I think they would potentially be a good fit. And so I was kind of let off the hook there, but I did do my own research on the agents that were suggested to me, and they were all within sort of the literary fiction, realistic fiction realm that really kind of fit with where my novel was. So that was a really good thing. The other big thing that you can do when you're researching the agents is to see which other authors they have as clients, because this can help you personalize your query letter. So if you notice that an agent really did a great job with this author whose book you read and you thought was great, you could say, in a similar vein, my novel, such as your, this novel explores these themes or something like that. And that way the agent kind of sees you did some research and you're in the same wheelhouse as one of their other clients. That's another great thing. So research is super, super key. Agents aren't going to give you the time of day if your work of literary masterpiece is not even in the same wheelhouse with what they're looking for. And it gives you the opportunity to personalize your query letter to an author they've represented, or, just to give something, a bit more than a standard, like insert name here when you're writing the query letter. So that's the first thing, do your research. The second thing is to, write the thing. And to start that, you would need to talk about your book. So this is tough. As I said, query letters are very short. They're like 300 words. So you have very little room to give an idea of what your novel short story collection is about. So the first thing you have to do, and this is all query letters, is you have to start off with kind of the very specific facts about your novel or whatever. So word count, super huge. You have to include the word count, the title, and the genre. Boom. That's what you have to start with. My novel, boom, parentheses, however many words is a boom. That way, start off, okay, great. I know exactly what this is about. I know about how long it is, because depending on what you're submitting, there are variable, word counts that would fit into that certain genre. So a novella, standard word count is different than a novel standard word count, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the first thing. You kind of start off the bat with here are the facts that you can then use to go into the real meat of the query letter, which is describing your book. So this is tough, and I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all. The biggest thing I've heard is that you have to have a hook. And basically, this is the thing that draws the agent in. And for me, what I was told by my wonderful advisor at Stanford, Sarah Frisch, when I was thinking of my own query letter was, what is the salient conflict in your novel that you would want to highlight as interesting and naughty, that you dug into and kind of draws the novel forward, right, and motivates it forward. So for me, that's what the hook means, is what is the conflict? How is this different? How is this unique? And what is the point of it, I guess, which is kind of a harsh thing to say, but I've read a lot of places too, there's the so what factor. So, in describing your novel, it's so what, this happened, so what, so what. So you're really trying to just get to the heart of the novel and what you're working on, because that's the most important thing, and you want the agent to know that from the very beginning. So that's what the hook is. And then you can kind of use the hook to kind of go into more plot stuff around your novel or whatever. It's kind of difficult because, again, you're very limited to that word count. But like I said, the biggest thing is kind of tackling the conflict. What are the greatest themes that your novel is exploring? You usually don't have to give a full synopsis. That stuff can come later. But you're really trying to give the agent the, again, most salient conflicts. What is driving the novel forward? What is it about? What is the heart of the novel? And this advice may not seem super helpful because, again, it's not one size fits all. Like a self-help book heart versus a sci-fi fantasy versus literary fiction are all going to be very, very different. But I think what makes books interesting, at least for me, is, like I said, the conflict that lies at the heart of the story and the characters and what is happening to them. How am I connecting with them? All of that stuff. And for me, in writing my own query letter, I mean, the novel that I have now is around 250 pages. And so having to condense that, I'm like, what am I really trying to say here? What am I trying to say with this story and these characters? And how can I get that across concisely to someone who's never read it before and would, want to make them read it? And so that's kind of how I thought about it. That's kind of the broader framework I used when, writing drafts and drafts of this query letter. And is something, I guess, some advice that I would offer based on, again, my own personal experience. And of course, everyone has different experiences. So far we have a quick intro. If you have that personalization, as I mentioned, great. But usually you kind of just give super bare bones, word count, title, genre. Then you give a very pithy, concise, interesting kind of explanation of what the novel is about, though not necessarily the whole plot. Really, what are the interesting tidbits, salient points, character developments, the conflict, the hook that can draw an agent in. And then finally at the end, and this part isn't very long either, you usually give a short bio and thank you. So for instance, This is not me. But some bios can include, hey, I've been published in these magazines, or I attended this writing program, or something to that effect that could potentially give you more credibility as a writer and that you've been recognized in these other arenas. So again, that differs from person to person. Some people have a lot of different publications under their belts in different magazines or something. Others may have just gotten out of a writing program, and others may not have a ton, but are just looking for this first opportunity. But a bio is a nice place to brag about yourself, but not too much in the literary sense, and kind of give the agent an idea of other ways in which you were successful, or just another way of kind of planting yourself in the literary world and kind of where you sit in it, if possible. And then, of course, a thank you. Obviously, agents get a ton of, literary submissions, and, you don't want to seem like, if you don't read this, then you're missing out. No, you want to be grateful for their consideration, for their time, for looking at it. So a good thank you is always important at the end there. And after that, you kind of just have to let it go. I think beyond the query letter, which you should do many drafts of and have people read it and make sure it's as strong as possible, because it's the first thing that catches the eye of an agent, is that the waiting can be, difficult, which I'll probably talk about in another episode. But you just have to be prepared to either you don't hear back or you have to apply to multiple people and all of that, which can be difficult. But I think there's also an element of such excitement and joy. I felt joy knowing that you're ready to put something out there that you've been laboring over for a really long time. And it's really, really such a beautiful sensation. And I think the query letter is kind of the first step of that, even though it is really difficult to kind of initially write it and get it to where it needs to be. And I guess the last piece of advice I'll offer is to always read submission guidelines. So agents usually don't have a standard this is how we would like you to submit your query letter. Some agents just want the query letter and then you have to wait for them to ask for the full manuscript. Some agents, I sent an agent the query letter along with the first chapter. So be sure to follow those guidelines so they make sure that you read things thoroughly, did your research, and followed the rules, because not all agencies will be the same, not all agents will be the same in how they would like everything to be presented to them, and you want to make sure that you're going the right way with that. So again, I think in discussing this journey with you all, it's just funny to think about all the bumps in the road and all the things I've learned. And I think the query letter, especially beyond all the wrangling with the novel and revisions and writer's block, all that stuff, was a super important step for me personally, because it kind of validated all the work I was doing. Even if I never heard back, even if I had to wait months for a reply, it just validated myself and that I felt comfortable enough to want to share it. Because some people never even get to that point. It's just perpetually unfinished and it's never good enough to share. So despite the frustrations that can come along with the query letter, both in writing it and the after effects of waiting, getting to that stage is a super important step in putting yourself out there. And I think for me, that's what it was for me. I don't know how it is for everybody else, but for my personal journey, that was really important to me. So I hope these tips helped. Again, do your research on the agents, not only to make sure they read it, but also potentially to personalize it. Describe your book, both the bare bones of the word count, title, and genre, but also the pithy hook, conflict, interesting dynamics that you can put into 300 words. And then finally, that short bio about yourself and kind of where you are in a literary sense. And of course, a thank you will always go far in any respect outside of just a query letter. So anyway, you guys, I really enjoyed talking about this subject. It's more on the it's more on, I guess, the business side of novel writing, which is fun. And I just loved kind of sharing this journey with you. And happy to continue doing so. So as always, would love it if you all could like and subscribe. I drop videos like this weekly, and let me know if you have any questions or even comments on your own experience down in the comments. So thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.